Welcome back from Spain over to Serie A, where Mina, I'm sure, you notice how festive Mina is looking today. A lot of it has to do with, of course, events this weekend with Juventus whooping Roma 4-0, laying the smackdown, I think, as some of my heroes might say it. And this was after Milan, of course, held to a 1-1 draw by Bologna the same day. So it's now a 3-point lead. And it's a nice-looking run-in, but we're going to get to Juve in a bit, and we're going to start on a bizarre and I don't even know how to describe it, absurd, grotesque, perhaps note.
Shameful, if you want to take the
shameful, yeah. No, I mean shameful. I don't see it as shameful necessarily.
No, I don't. But those are the words used by Rzouki, head of Coni. Yeah.
I don't think it's something that we're going to see again. But long and short of it is, Genoa have been in free fall for the last couple of months or so. They're playing at home against Siena. Genoa's fans had already warned the players that they wanted more effort out of them in what was clearly, I think, prearranged early in the second half with Genoa down 4-0 by that point.
Siena, battling relegation.
That's right. Some 60 to 80 Genoa fans, pretty hardcore types. They left their post and they sort of went around. They basically broke into the main stand, the stand right behind the tunnel. Their presence effectively drove out the people who were there, a lot of families and things like that. And they set off a couple flares, and they said that they were angry with the Genoa players, so they wanted to talk to them.
Well, they suspended.
They got the match suspended, and their point was that the Genoa players weren't putting in enough effort. They weren't fit to wear the shirt, and they wanted them to take their shirts off. Now, this is grotesque. This is completely absurd. The Genoa players, after some discussion, those watching on television were left with the sight of Marco Rossi, the Genoa captain, taking his shirt off, going around to a bunch of his teammates, collecting other shirts. Walking around with this bizarre-looking stack of shirts, like he picked up his dry cleaning or something.
Master was in floods of tears.
That's right. 2 Genoa players, it should be said, absolutely refused to take part in this nonsense. One of them was the goalkeeper, Sebastian Frey, one of my favorite guys in the world as well, who kept beating his chest and says, "Come take the shirt off me."
That was a sublime move.
And but the other one, of course, Giuseppe Sculli, who the Genoa striker, who went over. He's got a long-standing relationship with the ultras. Just talked to them and basically talked them out of it, saying like, "No, why should I take my shirt off?
I'm not going to take off my shirt. I have nothing to be ashamed of.
I have nothing to be ashamed of." Eventually, the players all put their shirts back on. The match restarted after a delay of about 40 minutes. And Genoa went on to lose 4-1, and then they sacked their manager, Alberto Malesani.
They did get that one, which was an own goal from Siena.
But I think the long and short of it is what we've seen, Mina, is a situation where a bunch of fans, and I'm never going to criticize fans' right to protest, but they basically held the game hostage. They ruined and spoiled the day for the other fans who were there, who were peaceful, and had every right to go there and watch the match.
Yes.
And I hope they come down, like a ton of bricks on these people, because frankly, I could see them on my television. And same way I can see them, I would expect that the police and the authorities could see them as well.
They are. I mean, from what I checked just sort of like 10 minutes ago, is that they were going through the pictures to identify the key men, and they are going to ban them from the stadium and from other stadiums, so that not to let them watch these, watch any match anymore as a sign of punishment. It was very grotesque, and I thought that the way that they went about it was embarrassing, and I thought that if the game wasn't played, then they would have been deducted points. They would be in further trouble than they are now. They're not thinking long-term strategy. This is not the right way to protest. Having said that, I think that the way that the media and certain people and certain men have come out to speak about it, the FIGC president and Coni president, who are like, "Oh, this is such a shameful disaster, like this is putting Italian football on such a, it's putting it further down the hill," or whatever you like to call it. I thought that was a bit much. I think
it's difficult to explain though to, I think, people watching 2 things. One is Marco Rossi's behavior. The captain of the team basically saying like, oh, you know, I am such a wuss that I'm going to do what these people tell me, despite the fact that, you know, they're 50 yards
Look,
away.
I know that you
police and
think he's
everything.
practically a wimp, yeah, but
No,
you
I think
feel
what he
sorry
did-
for him at this stage.
No,
because
I
he's
don't.
Scared.
I
He's
don't.
Scared.
I don't. Be a
yeah,
man.
you respect
Be a
Scully.
man.
I understand that you would respect the likes of Scully, and everyone said, well done for him to have gone up and been like, I'm not going to take this shirt off my back, yeah? But this is the captain of Genoa. He probably felt that there was no way out.
What, and he goes
Until
and he...
to negotiate with terrorists, basically,
well,
you know?
if Genoa were run by a serious person and not by Enrico Preziosi, I would immediately say Marco Rossi will never play for this club ever again. But the other thing, too, which is difficult to
They did
explain
call
is...
it sacrilege.
How do 60 to 80 people, because that's what it was, there's
Managed to
cops
have
there,
that
there's
much.
police there. I don't understand that the stadium in Genoa, Manassi, is right in town.
In the middle of
While
town,
this
yeah.
is going on, there were cops there. I would have thought, and apparently the reason the cops didn't intervene straight away is they didn't want to create a ruckus
Even
and a fight,
more,
whatever.
yeah.
But that's fine. So then just bring a bunch of people, bring a bunch of cop cars outside the stadium and pick these guys up as they come out.
But okay, but it's important to note that these guys weren't threatening these people, you know, weren't threatening the players' lives. They were protesting, they were angry. But I think in the middle of all of this, and they're calling this a shameful action, you've forgotten a lot of things. Hardly anyone mentioned the fact that Cesena football fans did exactly the same during their training session, throwing flares onto the pitch, aiming all of that.
Training session.
Fine,
There's no
it's a training
paying
session.
customers.
What happened with this is it was in front of the entire world. Meanwhile, we're forgetting other things, such as the Lazio fans chanting anti-Semitic comments during their match against Lecce. You know, like Italian
What does
football.
that have to do with anything?
No, I'm telling you, Italian football, I think it's quite hypocritical when they're sitting there coming down so harsh on this, when as a general rule, you're talking about the ultras and fans. There is so much for them to be ashamed of, and they should be talking about
I
this
think
in
some
general.
ultras. I think it's
and
important
also, they were talking.
sorry, it's important to make this distinction because you're talking about
No, we're
certain
talking about
people.
ultras. We're not talking about fans over here.
No,
yeah?
but we're talking about some ultras. The vast majority of ultras, I think, are definitely a positive force in Italian football.
Well, either stamp them out completely or accept that they come with this kind of thing. When you give any portion of supporters, whether they are ultras or just regular fans or whatever you want, this much control, and then you sit there and you give them, you know, free parking and amazing free tickets half the time. You treat them like they're kings. They have so much chance to do whatever they want. And then they are going to one day go against you when something like this happens. You accept the good or the bad. Before that game, they were talking about how wonderful the choreography was. And then, you know, I can see actually Tancredi on there, like, yelling at me. But I think my point is it's hypocritical when we're not coming down and stamping out racism, anti-Semitism, you know, things mentioned. This is a bad thing about football, but this is not the only thing that was bad that happened over the weekend.
I personally think this was unprecedented, and I think this in some ways was more serious because this is football basically giving in, or we went very close to it.
In.
Well, you know, he is the captain of the team. But do we have Tancredi?
Yes,
Tancredi,
we
can
do.
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly, Gab.
All right, Tancredi, now, first of all, I know you were listening in. What's the situation? What's the latest? Have arrests been made? Have people been identified? And also, is anybody talking about taking action against Marco Rossi, or are we all just feeling sorry for him?
Well, first of all, 10 people so far have been identified by the police, has been said today. This doesn't mean that they have already been caught, already been arrested, or whatever. They have been identified. And that it's a point I want to come back later. You asked me about Marco Rossi, but I have to actually correct one thing you both were talking about before. Because yesterday night there was, let's say, a story in the story between who said what to who about who had to take off the shirts. At first, the Genoa's president, Enrico Preziosi, said, we were told to do that, so the order could be under control. Then there was the questore, that is the kind of chief of police there in the city, that said, we didn't give that order at all to the team. We were supporting the people all the time. We were there on the pitch. And then later today, this morning, the president of Genoa actually admitted that taking off the shirts was actually the best action to do in that moment, in order that nothing more dangerous would happen. So actually, it's been clarified. Even if we are talking about Marco Rossi, and honestly, as a captain, I would feel ashamed but it was the president of the club, it was Preziosi, the president of Genoa, that said, okay guys, let's take off the shirts.
All right, Tancredi, as far as the general president concerned, his name is Enrico Preziosi, and I have numerous court injunctions against me, preventing me from discussing this guy, because I think he is one of the cancers of Italian football. You can go and Google him, see what a fine job he did at Como, see what a fine job he did in the famous Genoa-Venezia game when he got his team relegated for attempted match fixing.
Talk about actions against you, so goodbye, guys.
Exactly, yeah, no, I know he's a close family friend of yours, Tancredi. But let's move on from this nonsense to something very joyous for people like Mina, people who are infected with that Juventina disease. But
Gabriele, just half a minute before we move there.
Okay.
Just want to say one thing. It's not about presidents or whatever, because really tens, if not hundreds of people asking me why these things are happening, why it's not possible to stop. Everyone asking me, where was police? And I was showing them, look, there are some 10 policemen there on the pitch. Until in Italy, we will not have a straight consequence between act, crime and punishment, until that normal chain, that normal link will not have its normal way, its normal stream, well, this thing will happen. Why in England would be never possible that some fans would climb on the roof of the tunnel, because the police would arrive there, taking them, bringing them to justice, and the day after they would be sentenced. So, just wanted to say this point.
No, go on.
No problem, Tancredi. Obviously, there's different rules and different policing and that's a debate probably for a different time. But Mina's getting very antsy because we're not celebrating Juventus' 4-0 win.
Yes,
Mina,
exactly.
take it away.
Can I just say that was a 4-0 victory over Roma, which everyone thought would be the banana skin for them. And I was like,
I certainly did.
You did, right?
Magica, of course.
Everyone was saying, oh, Juventus' run is so hard, Milan's is so much easier by comparison, and I kept writing and I kept tweeting and I threw everything that I could. Juventus perform in the big games. It's the smaller teams, they don't know how to pierce. So for me, throw in the big games as much as possible. They'll find a way because they have space to play their game, which they did yesterday. I mean, that match was over in 77 minutes, really. I was kind of bored afterwards. I felt sorry for Stecklenburg because I did not think that that was a red card. It was a penalty for sure. Second penalty ever for Juventus. Not ever, rather,
Never
just this season.
Right.
It was a You're trying to say it's not a penalty?
No. The guy just let faint his leg on Stecklenburg.
That was a penalty in whatever way you
Guys,
try to say.
Guys, the point is, even without that, Juve won. It's a 3-point lead. What I need to get from you,
doesn't make any difference.
what I need to get from you, Tancredi, is, did they basically win the title here, looking at the run-in and looking at how demoralized and frankly crummy Milan were at home against Bologna?
Well, the thing is, guys, it is too, well, and you know, because me, and then also there was Gabriele, until weeks ago when Juventus was still under Milan, some 4 points were saying, Juve will do it, Juve will do it. I was with that since November when there was Napoli-Juventus, so for sure I will not be now the one saying, oh, it's not that sure. Still, yesterday I compared the calendars, and in the next 3 games, Juve is playing the 3 bottom teams. That this means that actually none of them are able to give, as the roster, as their quality, some real problem to Juventus. Still, Juventus is in the position to be in each game the one that will sentence them to relegation. So in some way, anyway, for them will be crucial. Will not be, okay, we are waiting here for the relegation and then we'll see. It will be a bit crucial for them. So I still stick 101% with Juventus. But anyway, it's not that sad. They still summed up some points, even if after what we saw yesterday, Milan against Bologna, nothing new, nothing.
But this is very much the work of Stefano Pioli. I feel like he's been absolutely marvellous against the big teams, and he was stifled Juventus very well, and now he's done it with Milan.
Talking about big teams, but now let's go back to Milan. We were saying, no, I mean in the last months they haven't played honestly as someone that is fighting for the title. Yesterday was just another demonstration of that. Nothing new in that way. They've been unlucky, okay, because one goal to Ibrahimovic was disallowed again. Something where goal line technology would be so useful. But honestly, sometimes there are moments in which the luck is songs. Yeah.
Tancredi,
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, but we've run out of time because of Mina's earlier rant. Thank you so much. That's
You gave me the floor.
that's Tancredi Palmeri. Nice to see you also praising Pioli at Bologna. Maybe he can replace Conte next season when he takes his vacation.
Not, but he's a Trapattoni boy, so he knows how to grind out big wins.
That's great how Mina didn't catch that reference to Conte's enforced vacation. We might talk about that next week, depending how things work out. We're going to be back with the Bundesliga. Welcome back from Spain over to Serie A, where Mina, I'm sure, you notice how festive Mina is looking today. A lot of it has to do with, of course, events this weekend with Juventus whooping Roma 4-0, laying the smackdown, I think, as some of my heroes might say it. And this was after Milan, of course, held to a 1-1 draw by Bologna the same day. So it's now a 3-point lead, and it's a nice-looking run-in. But we're going to get to Juve walking around with this bizarre-looking stack of shirts, like he picked up his dry cleaning or something.
Mesto was in floods of tears.
That's right. Two Genoa players, it should be said, absolutely refused to take part in this nonsense. One of them was the goalkeeper, Sebastian Frey, one of my favorite guys in the world as well, who kept beating his chest and says, "Come take the shirt off me."
That was a sublime move.
And but you know, the other one, of course, Giuseppe Scully, who the Genoa striker, who went over. He's got a long-standing relationship with the ultras. Just talked to them. I said that they were angry with the Genoa players, so they wanted to talk to them.
Well, they suspended.
They got the match suspended, and their point was that the Genoa players weren't putting in enough effort. They weren't fit to wear the shirt, and they wanted them to take their shirts off. Now, this is grotesque. This is completely absurd. The Genoa players, after some discussion, those watching on television were left with the sight of Marco Rossi, the Genoa captain, taking his shirt off, going around to a bunch of his teammates, collecting other shirts at a bit, and we're going to start on a bizarre and I don't even know how to describe it, absurd, grotesque, perhaps, note.
Shameful, if you want to take the...
Shameful, yeah, no, I mean, shameful. I don't see it as shameful necessarily.
No, I don't, but those are the words used by Petrucci, head of CONI. Yeah.
I don't think it's something that we're going to see again, but long and short of it is Genoa have been in free fall for the last couple months or so. They're playing at home against Siena. Genoa's fans had already warned the players that they wanted more effort out of them in what was clearly, I think, prearranged early in the second half with Genoa down 4-0 by that point.
Siena, battling relegation.
That's right. Some 60 to 80 Genoa fans, pretty hardcore types. They left their post and they sort of went around. They basically broke into the main stand, the stand right behind the tunnel. Their presence effectively drove out the people who were there, a lot of families and things like that. And they set off a couple flares and they